G'day guys and welcome back to the channel. Sorry about the impromptu location here, in between a couple of places, so I can't do anything about it. I'm sorry, I'm working on it. Today I wanted to come and talk to you about the DC Rebirth, Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, I believe it's called. Very long name. Volume 1, Sinestro's Law. Now, I've come to a little bit of a realization here, and that's, I don't like the Green Lantern. Now, this wasn't solely that comic book's fault, but just something that it really accentuated after reading it. You see, when I say I don't like the Green Lantern, I'm only referring to Hal Jordan, it's his self. The Green Lantern Corps I'm completely fine with. I just view them as a police department, which I think they're quite obviously, they even go out with say that they are the space cops, essentially. So, I mean, not very, not hiding that fact very much. But what I really don't care about the Green Lanterns is solely what Hal Jordan brings to the table, or the lack thereof. He is such a fucking boring character, and I'm sorry for swearing, this is going to contain a couple of curse words, but I'm sorry, it's just like Hal Jordan is the worst. He has no personality except I'm the guy that doesn't give up. And if you know me and my wrestling talks, you'll know that there's a couple of people that I don't like if their entire personality is I will never give up. Now, it's always good to have a character that has a couple of flaws, and I know that in the past they've explored Hal Jordan's little bit of arrogance, and that the fear being his main opponent with the Sinestro Corps, they've also factored that into his character. But even then, it's not really something that is a really, like, a dent in the armor to him. He'll always just overcome at the end of the day, and just because he's Hal Jordan. I don't understand the fascination and the love that people have for this character. I feel like Guy Gardner, John Stewart and Kyle Rayner are all better Green Lanterns, and they seem to be shafted and put to the side. Especially Kyle Rayner. I didn't see him anywhere in this comic except they just mentioned him offhandedly. As for Guy Gardner, he plays a more prominent role along with John Stewart, but even then they're sort of backseat roles, and you can really see why Hal Jordan gets top billing in the title here. I think that Sinestro also has a bit of a cop-out, how he's, and this will be filled with spoilers, so if you don't want to hear any spoilers about it, I'm sorry, I'm just going to go into a whole bunch of them. Sinestro comes in and he's pretending to be old at the very beginning. Well, when I say pretending, he actually is old. However, through the contrivances of comic books and once again making the no stakes whatsoever, he goes simply to the parallax being that's been powering up the Sinestro Corps for such a long time and says, hey, I'd like to be young again, and he steals the power and becomes young again. Albeit with a Matt Hardy broken style streak through his hair. I don't really know what to say about this. Sinestro, this whole comic's kind of felt all over the place. While I do like callbacks to the Sacrament and the idea of having the War World as the Sinestro Corps movable planet that is causing so much destruction, and the fact that they're trying to rule through fear. There's just a whole bunch of weird things that go on in this that I feel like they didn't have enough time to explore, or they might have purposely been cut down on. With specific references to like, oh, now we rule the galaxy, but you know, Sinestro is not really content. He's like, we do rule the galaxy, but they don't fear us, so we need to make sure that they fear us. And while definitely that is tying into the whole Sinestro Corps fear yellow element, I personally don't see it within Sinestro's character to be like, cool, I finally got that law and order that I've always strived through and strive for with my Corps, and now I'm just going to fucking piss it all away so that we can power up the fear machine, which apparently powers their rings and his rings. I feel like this Sinestro Corps, it was just a reason for him to be like, okay, I'm actually evil again, guys. Don't like me at all. There's a lot of other minor characters in this that, to be honest, I can't remember their names exactly at the moment. There's Sinestro's daughter who makes an appearance. I think it's Lissa, who's kind of like Sinestro's concubine and sort of priestess towards the parallax being, and the Sacrament comes back into it. And while they do reference all the other lanterns, they're kind of off doing other things. Like it shows like, hey, look, here's La Fleas, and look, there's Indigo 1 and all that sort of stuff, and the Star Sapphire, but they don't really have any direct contribution into the story. What we do get is a lot of hero worship for Hal Jordan, and how he's able to now forge a ring And even in the earliest writings of the comic, when he says, you know what, the Guardians, they told everyone that only they had the knowledge to make these rings, but I can do it. And I'm just like, okay, what? I guess you can now. You see, a lot of people talk about the fact that Superman is rather boring and unfallible, but I feel like if you really want to get that kind of discussion, or if you want to try and say, hey, who's comparable to what you just said, take away Superman from that equation and instead substitute Hal Jordan. And especially with the concept of the ring itself, which is just like you have to have a form of willpower. With Guy Gardner, it's his willpower that he's like very stubborn. He doesn't want to give in to authority. It's always his way or the highway. With John Stewart, it's that military background and that architectural mind where he's just like, everything has an order. Everything has to be done in a certain specific way, whether it's on the battlefield or in the perfect lines of architecture. Everything makes sense, and I will fight for that sense. When with Kyle Rayner, he's mainly more artistic, and you get those crazy things that you weren't expecting because he is more imaginative than the other Lanterns, and his willpower comes from this this sense of just wanting to be a better person, fighting his own demons, and also trying to get his creations out there and prove his own self-worth, not just as an artist, but as a Green Lantern. And Hal Jordan's willpower is just, I saw my dad die, and I wanted to conquer that fear. Like, even in this, they reiterate it twice, but it's like, my dad was a test pilot, he died. In order to overcome that fear, I became a test pilot. And then I saw a Green Lantern who died, and he, you know, gave me the ring, Abin Sur, and that's his origin story. But they reiterate it twice, and they're just like, no, but see what he had to do? He overcame fear to become a Green Lantern. When, I'm like, okay, so his willpower comes from overcoming fear. That's literally just something you write down as a dot point, and then you're like, okay, but what's the backstory to come into this? He overcame his dad's fear for personal reasons, I guess. I don't understand. Obviously, it took a lot to maybe come over that, but especially with how he's written, you don't get any sense of real fulfillment in that narrative. You don't get any sense of like, oh yeah, that's inspiring that he was able to get over that. It's morally reduced to just fucking 2 sentences, as I said, where you would try and build a bigger arcing story around why he has so much willpower. Instead, we get this this cocky and boring guy that never gives up and then just shows up at the end to beat Sinestro. That being said, Sinestro is given this major power boost, but once again, he says for everyone to leave Warworld and that he'll fight Hal Jordan by himself, which just leads to them fighting, and then eventually there's some undoing from the Green Lanterns and some Sinestro Corps traitors that decide to go and join with the Green Lanterns, which stops his power source from being unlimited, and he's able to fight Hal Jordan. And for some reason, even though he would still have a full day or even more surplus of fear or energy left in his ring, he's able to be immediately just fucking decimated by Hal Jordan, who is now being described as he's becoming a construct of pure will himself. So as if he needed any more boosts above all the other Green Lanterns. They're like, no, he's actually becoming a construct of pure will. That's how dedicated his willpower is. That's the kind of thing he's tapped into. And he went to that level of dedication, so he used that original, I think they call it Krona's Shield, which was the prototype for the Green Lantern ring. He tapped into that even though he knew the risks, but that was his willpower. Just seems a little bit contrived to me. I know it's comic book, well, it is a comic book, and there's almost very little stakes involved, but it really feels like they took even more out of it. I never really feel thrilled when it comes to a Green Lantern story, because I know that eventually the status quo will resume, even though that's with most comic books. But for example, at the very end, and once again, this is probably the biggest spoiler of the trade, when Hal Jordan, he gives his life at the end to, akin to, and I hate to make the comparison to there, but I watch my Dragon Ball Z, everyone knows I'm a big fan of it. Hal Jordan does something akin to Vegeta to Super Buu. He just releases all that energy, releases the energy out of himself as a construct, and just blows up. And it takes Sinestro, presumably with him. We're not sure we see Sinestro reaching out to Lys's hand at the very end, so they could be teleported away and whatever. But when that happened, I didn't exactly feel like, oh man, these two are gone. It's like, no, Hal Jordan not only got his I'm a hero moment that's willing to sacrifice anything and everything, but it's going to amount to nothing. So this is just like, hey, don't you like Hal Jordan? Look how cool he is. Even though he'll be back in like 2 or 3 weeks, but 2 or 3 months. But yeah, if you want to see this kind of story where it's like a hero that selflessly goes up against someone and dies, and even has that comic book like return. You know where I'm going with this. Go to Superman. Once again, Superman does it better in the Death of Superman arc, and while there is a lot more build-up in that case, it also makes it feel much like when he's gone, he's gone. In this case, when Hal Jordan goes, it's like when he's gone, you know he's coming back, and you're not even sure if he's actually really dead at the end, so you don't even know how to feel. And when they close out the book at the end with the Sinestro Corps traders coming over to the Green Lanterns at the very end, it's just like, cool, that's an ending, and it kind of ends in a very unsatisfying way. So that's what I really wanted to talk about with the Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps Volume 1 Sinestro's Law trade. Give it a miss, honestly. I mean, if you're a Green Lantern fan and you're a really big fan of Hal Jordan, I don't understand why, but I have no issues if that is you. You'd like this. I mean, they're trying to push Hal Jordan like he used to be before the New 52, but it just wasn't for me. So that's what I think about it. And thank you guys for listening to this. I'll hopefully get a new locale set up and try and make it look a little bit more professional. But you know me, it's not exactly going to be super professional at the end of the day anyway. Thanks for listening, guys, and I'll catch you guys later.